afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning on the 12 o'clock news. Today we've got an interesting story for you.
There's been a lot of talk lately about this particular person. We will soon join Julie in the field with Toru, but first we will give background information on the case.
So here's some background information. Here we are following Toru Okada on this case. We need to explain the psychological theory and lens.
The psychological lens is one in which we analyze a text with the idea that literature represents the human mind, with a focus on the morality and reasoning behind one's choices.
The reason for the psychological lens is to bring awareness to human interaction and the choices we make and why we make them. It emphasizes the moral decisions of the characters as well as their sense of identity.
This is not to be confused with the psychoanalytical lens, which uses Sigmund Freud's theories of psychology about different aspects of a person's personality, including the id, ego, and superego. In contrast, the psychological lens uses one's own understandings of the world to analyze the text and the interactions between characters that takes place within them.
So here's one quotation that Kimiko stated that we found to be a perfect example to show how to interpret a statement using the psychological lens. Kimiko says, "So why? You might ask, did I have an affair? And to top it off, why I ran away from home. I asked myself the same question over and over again, even while it was happening. Why do I have to be doing this?" On page 274. Here, Kimiko uses rhetorical questions when saying, "So why did I have to have an affair?" And to top it off, ran away from home. And why do I have to be doing this? Which characterizes Kimiko as a coward to ask these questions when she knows she won't have an answer, as well as confused because she can't get her own morals straight. And she doesn't know why she's doing what she's doing, which shows how she doesn't have any moral codes for herself. She also uses a tone of uncertainty with her use of questions, again, to emphasize how she doesn't know her own moral decisions. And the juxtaposition of pronouns in the questions, from first it being from you and then changing it to I, the juxtaposition shows how she doesn't have a good reason for anyone else or herself for her actions because of her lack of morals. And it doesn't affect only herself but others as well. And now to Renee.
In another quotation on page 267, Toru states, "Then, all of a sudden, the possessing demon fell away, and none of this mattered anymore. Why did I have to warm up stale memories like this? What good did it do? I took a deep breath, let my shoulders droop, and my body sink back into the darkness. I tried pursuing another memory, but once the incredibly intense anger passed, I had run out of memories. My head was now as empty as my stomach." In this quotation, there's an expletive used when Toru says, "all of a sudden." This is done to emphasize the speed at which his state of mind changed and how his confused state of mind is shown while down in the well. Also, Toru uses a questioning tone when he questions exactly why old memories resurfaced. This further emphasizes his somewhat diluted mental state. This connects to the psychological lens because Toru's mental state is a direct result of his own choice to go down into the well and to reflect on his life. There's imagery when Toru describes the feeling of his body. This is done to demonstrate the physical embodiment of his current mental state. He is trapped in a sort of relaxed and dark place. He then ends the statement by comparing his mind to his hunger-stricken stomach with a simile. This comparison reveals to the audience that Toru feels that his mind is completely clear, similar to the bear feeling in his stomach as a result of the lack of food.
Now to our expert in the psychological lens, Julie Edmonton, with our special guest, Toru Okada, everyone.
Alright, I'm a psychological expert here with Mr. Toru Okada. Mr. Okada recently spent an amount of time in the bottom of an empty well. Mr. Okada, what can you tell me about your time spent in this well?
Well, it gave me a lot of time and clear mental space to think about the important issues in my life at the time. I got the idea from a friend, Lieutenant Mamiya, and an old friend, Mr. Honda, who told me about how life-altering spending time in the bottom of a well can be. So I decided to do the same.
Can you clarify this life altercation for myself and the viewers at home?
Well, as I said on page 231 of my autobiography, when I had a lot of time to think about the core of my reality in the well. When I was in the well, I explained why I went down there. After several deep breaths, I told myself, okay then, enough of this thinking about the mind. Think about reality. Think about the real world. The body's world. That's why I'm here, to think about reality. The best way to think about reality, I had decided, was to get as far away from it as possible, a place like the bottom of a well, for example. My short sentence structure shows how erratic my thoughts were down there, and how at that moment the only thing I could focus on was reality. The anaphora of think about shows how I had to focus on myself and had to remember why I was there. As I said, my thoughts were all over the place when I went down there, and as I said, I thought the best place to think about reality would be away from it. My exemplum when I said a place like the bottom of the well shows how I chose the well to do such thinking. This quotation shows the justification for my actions and how I decided to go into the well and spend quite a bit of time down there, which obviously is not a super normal thing to do.
Obviously. Well, your time in the well sounds very interesting, but I'm also aware that you have a friend, May. What can you tell me about her?
May is my 16-year-old neighbor and was the only one that knew that I was down in the well.
Well, on page 254 of your autobiography, May exhibits some very strange behavior. She says, "You might die down here depending on my mood. You could yell, but no one would hear you. No one would think you were at the bottom of a well. I bet no one would even notice you were gone. You'd be dead by then. They'd never find your body." In this quotation, May is demonstrating a clear lack of morality and empathy. Her casual tone with "might die" and "depending on the mood" demonstrates the idea that she lacks the basic care for other people, and she lacks the morals to believe that this topic of conversation, threatening you, Mr. Okada, is wrong. The repetition of "no one" also demonstrates that this thought process is not only based on entertainment, but also on practicality. No one would think to look for a grown man in an empty well. And May knows this. She is fully aware of reality and how it works, yet she is lacking in morality. The expletive, "depending on my mood," once again adds to the casualty of this conversation. May is completely comfortable with threatening your life. So, Mr. Okada, my question is, why do you continue to be around her? She clearly lacks of the basic morality of humanity. What role is morality, or the lack thereof, playing in the decisions of other characters within the Wind-Up Bird Chronicle? That one's for you.
Disclaimer: The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle is not an autobiography. It is a novel written by Haruki Murakami and Katie Taro. Go. Disclaimer. Yes. What? I'm writing this down. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning on the 12 o'clock news. Today we've got an interesting story for you.
There's been a lot of talk lately.
I don't want no pretty face. I don't want just anyone to hold. I don't want my love to go to waste.
And there's Katie that's literally doing her work.
So